What's up, Liron here, and I've been asked a lot recently to do a watercolor painting without any pencil guidelines. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to paint this, it's the Amber Fort in Jaipur. We're going to paint it from start to finish, no pencil lines, very challenging, a very good exercise to open up creativity, enjoy the process, and not be so stressed about being as accurate as possible. So let's get started. So this time, unlike most tutorials, we'll start with direct initial wash. Now, I'm mixing a cool mixture at the top part of my palette. I'm using the leftovers plus a bit of French ultramarine and some Quinacridone Rose. That's going to be the ceiling of the structure that you can see here at the top sections, okay? But again, this is just an initial wash, so I'm going to keep it fairly light, like so. Make sure it flows well, because I need that to be as even as I can, and slowly I'll start introducing a bit of yellow into the mixture, okay? A bit more and more yellow. Now it may be a little green, which is fine. I'm going to start yellowing it up more significantly, like so. And now I'm going to start warming it for real. So we're going to start using a bit of red. This is kind of a Parylene red, a little cooler, and nickel azo yellow. Top again is French ultramarine. And right now I don't really know where everything is, so I'm kind of improvising. But again, that's the challenge, and I have been asked to do this, so we'll see how it goes. Now, as I reach the bottom, I actually want to warm it up a little more with the quinacridone, because that's the part of the floor that's closest to us, and that tends to be a little darker. Now, the beauty of the first wash really comes from it being done in one go without too much care, actually. So if I'm gonna start putting in some stuff back in here, I'm gonna ruin the freshness. So I'm not gonna mess around with that at all. I'm gonna that's where I stop, okay? And I'm gonna allow this some time to dry, a very simple initial wash that will hopefully get us to where we wanna be, okay? So I'm gonna let this one dry and then continue. So now we're getting into the main, hardest, most challenging part of this painting, and that is figuring out where everything is, where the main shapes are. Now again, normally I wouldn't do it this way, but this is some kind of an interesting challenge for us. So what I'll do is, I think I'll have kind of a diagonal line here combining the poles at the back and at the front, as well as the floor here. That kind of the poles go kind of like that, and the floor goes kind of like this, okay? So we'll just get started. We'll keep it still quite light, so we can come back and add some more shadows later on. And actually, I may keep it quite warm as well, okay? Not quite warm, but a little warm. Because I want the ceiling to reflect two things. The light shining from the floor, reflecting from the floor, as well as the material itself, which is quite warm in its nature. But we need a large amount of paint here, so I'm not stopping. I keep mixing more and more in, okay? And I think with that we can get started. And again, if I had a drawing here, I would have done this probably very differently. But for now, that's the best way I can think of doing this. This time I have the paper rather leveled. And then we're going to start putting in the details in the pole. So here comes one, kind of like that, and that goes to the bottom here. That's one. And doing things this way is very freeing in some cases because you're doing things very differently than you're used to. And this is another one here. I'm going to need more paint, more water, more of everything basically. Really, you have to use a lot of everything if you want to keep things fresh. Now I'm gonna frame this up with another one here to the left. I normally wouldn't do it, but if we're experimenting, let's go all the way. And here we have another one. This one's fairly orange, so let's switch it up a bit, make it a little more interesting. Let's add a bit of texture here. A bit of that orange to the back. Another pole here. And add its texture. And here we want to make sure we connect everything, so kind of like that. a bit warmth here. And honestly, I have no idea what will happen here, what will this thing will end up like, but we do need a stronger diagonal, so like that. Let's warm it up, let's cool it off, sorry, around the bottom here. Feels like it's a little cooler. And what I want to do, while I already have everything here, all the paint warm and everything, I'm going to start putting in some figures. So we have these two women that are really close to us. So that's a face. And again, I don't have much to work with because of the nature of this painting and this challenge. So I'm just going to do my best. That's kind of what they wear. A bit of red for the shirt here, and perhaps for the hand. A bit more red for the other figure, like so. Then I'm going to darken it up near the bottom just to have a better indication that that's a person. Same goes for this side, but I do need more yellow. And you see how it slowly starts to come together. Again, not easy, definitely an interesting, worthwhile challenge, I would say. And one I'm happy to do. There are a couple of figures here that I may as well put in. Now this part already dried to some extent, but let's start placing in some figures here. That's one, that's two. I'm gonna switch to a smaller brush because I feel like I'm starting to not put as much effort as I can, and I'm gonna need a smaller brush to be more accurate. That's another figure, like so. And what I will do is add that figure here in the back and have him negative painted around the other figures. Who knows what this is? Just a bunch of people. There's another person here. Like so. So he's sitting down here. Like that. There's a kind of architectural detail here. Now there's this person that wears a strikingly red shirt. I'm gonna place him in. Probably should have put another pole here, but that's fine. He's a little taller than these women here, so now I'm gonna add a bit of this strong red. Hand, another hand at the back. I'm gonna try and mimic kind of what I see. And then his pants are kind of gray. So we'll see what we can do with that. Kind of like this and that, just walking. Then there are a bunch of people here, but let's kind of blend those in, so lighter, like so. This wash is actually so light that I could probably put in the building at the background here, which I should have, but that's fine. I'm gonna add it now. So this is gonna be fairly yellow. I'm talking about this building here. And it's at the horizon pretty much, so what I want to do is make it kind of flat. I'm just going to start putting it in. We'll see what happens. I will leave a couple of highlights near the top, so we'll see how it goes. We'll just go for it. So we have the top of the building here, like so. Then under that, I'm going to leave a gap for a highlight. And this is very warm. I'm gonna cool it off just a little bit. Gonna add another highlight here. Kind of finish this off, I think, around here. So that's like that. And you see, drawing definitely saves you time when it comes to the actual painting process, because you see exactly where everything is. Makes things a whole lot easier. But there is this fun aspect of painting directly like that, kind of taking a risk, going a little crazy. That's that. And maybe you can kind of squint your eyes and start seeing this make sense. So we're gonna have this orange part of the roof here as well. We have a serious highlight here that I want to preserve, so we'll go like that. Kind of a balcony or something like that. Then we have this main, probably one of the main entrances. These gaps I'm going to try and fix later on, but I'm just trying to keep it kind of in order for now. And now we're going to cool all of these off, so that's one part. It's all going to be pretty much horizontal here, okay? Bit of blue here. This is a fairly interesting experience that I don't know how it's gonna end up, and I'm fine with that. There's lastly this building, gonna add a bit of a highlight around the head of this person, and this person perhaps as well. And you see how things start to get together and create something. Again, this is really no guarantees in watercolor, and definitely not in this kind of work, but just adding a bit of details, shadows. This has kind of a shadow underneath, kind of like that. It's very freeing. On the other hand, if you're able to let go and do this kind of an exercise, it's very freeing. So now I'm going to let this dry as well, and then we'll come back and start making the differentiation between the different elements, mainly in the poles here. That's going to be our main work. So now we have all the main shapes established. I poured a bit more French ultramarine or ultramarine blue in here, because I'm going to need it. We're going to start now using what we have so far, establishing the shapes of the poles. That's the main thing we should darken right now. The rest is going to be quite light. I'm going to start with a very blue mix, and we'll see what we get. Again, this is very challenging because I have nothing to work with, but I'm looking at the negative shapes. Notice how there are some negative shapes around the objects I'm working on, and I'm trying to paint those, okay? Not easy, again, but possible. So I'm trying to fill in those areas negatively. And it's good to do this kind of exercise because now I really find out that I do need at least some pencil lines to work with. But this is great fun still. So here we go, a couple of the shapes around the poles, like that. Here we have a couple of shadows, and we're gonna darken this up. I'm gonna use a bit more yellow purely. Let's see what happens. So to darken this thing a little, that's kind of I'm gonna cover this whole thing. And now hopefully we created a negative shape. I actually want this to be darker. Let's go get it a little darker here. And we actually created a shape around this pole, okay? Just by working a little negatively. Now we have this kind of thing here. Let's fill this entire thing up, okay? Compositionally, I don't know if it was the smartest move to place that here, but we'll hope that it works. So that goes here. Maybe add a bit of phthalo blue here, just to add some darkness. Like so. I'm actually gonna need to darken this significantly. Let's use the carbazole violet here. There we go. Like so. This pole goes here. Kind of like that. My brushwork isn't the best today, which is a bit of a problem because we're relying on that mostly, but that's fine. Now I want to play around with this shape here. So what we have is kind of a thing that goes that way, this way, and this connects to this pole, okay? So I need to fill in this area here. That's kind of what I'm working on right now. We're gonna take care of the front poles later on, don't worry about those. And here, this needs some darkening. I'm gonna add a bit of orange just to break up the purpleness or violetness, if that's a word. And then I'm gonna paint around this woman here at the foreground. Okay, so that's gonna create a bit of interest there, hopefully. And maybe slowly this starts to come together. Now I'm gonna need a bit more red for these because I can tell they're quite warm. Kind of like that. And then here around this last pole we have another shape. I'm gonna use a bit more red for that. And then a bit more purple. And hopefully that'll get us there. Like this. A bit darker around the top. Here we go. Now for the poles that are closer to us, they're a bit more warm. So I'm gonna use plenty of yellow, a bit of red. Who knows what's gonna happen with these, but I don't want to darken them as much because they're not as dark in the reference. I don't know if that's the right move. Again, it's a bit hard for me to process what I see when I don't have a pencil guidelines. It's hard to process the thing. That's the thing, but we're gonna be okay, I think. So the efficiency of what I do is hurt by having less things to work off of. This part is dark. probably darker than it seems actually, so let's do that. We're gonna negative paint around the figure here, so let's darken it up just to add a bit more to the contrast. Like so, and then we'll continue this because it does go all the way to the bottom here. And hopefully that shape will connect in a few moments. And let's continue with wash for the poles here. I didn't leave enough highlights here, but that's fine. We'll see what happens. As long as there is some sense of depth in this scene, I'm pleased with it. Even if the result isn't as good as it could be. Let's add a bit of orange here. Like so. There we go. Moves all the way to the bottom, like that. We do have some reflections that I'm going to try and get in here, like so. Like that. And I'm going to wet this area and this area. I'm going to try and pull through some reflections. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully that'll make sense in the finished piece. We'll see about that. What else do I want to take care of now? There is a bit of sense of depth now, which is good. I'm going to add some details wet and wet. Okay, so maybe that'll also improve the shapes of everything we painted so far. And you see, this is, I learn new things every day. So, like, I am still developing my skills, and the fear or challenge of not knowing exactly how to do something, it's great that it's there. So don't let it cripple you. Actually, if you're uncertain of what you do, that's good. That's because you learned something new. So really, I wouldn't worry about it too much. I see a lot of people that write to me on Instagram that are a little crippled by their fear of uncertainty or not knowing exactly how to do a certain thing, or being scared of doing things that are a little bolder and a little harder. And that's how you learn. That's really how you learn. If you're not going to go through these experiences, if you don't go through them, you won't get there. Okay, so you have to get through these stages. And my fear is later on you develop this courage, but early on you don't have it. That's what I want you to really wrap your head around. That if you're just getting started, things are going to be scary. That's fine. That's part of the learning process. So I would highly recommend you challenge yourself and go for it. And not worry too much about doing things the right way, because you're going to learn the right way regardless, just by doing. So a couple of shadows here to indicate this shape. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know, really. As long as the sense of light is good, really, I'm happy. So I'm trying to convey the shape of the poles, the roundedness, the texture, maybe even some of the architectural details, without overdoing it, obviously. Trying to, at least, not overdo it. Here we go. I love this way of painting fresh. Now, the funny thing is, as soon as we'll put more details for the figures here at the front, it's going to be less meaningful and it's going to be better. It's going to make more sense. Okay, so I'm putting in some details for their clothes, keeping it fairly light, because it is kind of light. But here, the shirt is a little darker. And then the hand, the arm rather, goes like that. She's actually thinking about something, so it connects here. A bit of almost black around the bottom of her shirt. Then around the bottom I'm gonna add a bit of this kind of thing here. Hopefully that, I don't know, will make it look like a figure. A bit of pure red for the other hand here. Maybe even a bit too pure, but that's fine. Connect those parts. Connect that. The other figure, I kind of wonder if I should just let it blend into the... Stay like that, stay very loose. But I'll probably add some more details regardless. Just maybe for the shadowy parts. So here, around there, maybe around the bottom. Some perhaps dry brush shadows, or texture or creases in the cloth that'll indicate that we have another person there. So hopefully that makes sense, and that way we keep it open. So you see the figure completely melts into the foreground. That's cool. That's a nice little effect. And I think with that we're nearly done. Maybe add a couple of details for these people here, because they are kind of at the front. Make them darker. Face, 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 face. Just a bit of red. This guy's shirt is quite red, so I'm going to add it here. I'm going to add some dry brush in pure blue to the back, which will balance things out a little. So don't worry about that. We will take care of the color harmony as well. That's a figure, but it's a very loose figure, because it's at the edges of the painting. And then I'm gonna just pull this through here, kind of a reflection. And it's because of there isn't rain or anything like that, it's just a smooth textured floor, so you get to see some reflections on it. And now for the people's clothes, I'm gonna blue them quite a bit here. Feels like the right thing to do. And we have a lot of people in the background I'm going to add in just a moment. But hopefully, at least now, there is a bit of sense of depth. That's the thing I'm after, and I hope it is conveyed. It's a bit hard for me to tell as the person who painted this, but hopefully that makes sense. Now we have a bunch of stairs here that lead all the way to the entrance that I'm going to put in dry brush. A bit of details here and there. And mostly it's going to be just straight lines indicating the shape of the building in the background. Like so. A bit more paint, actually. A bit less water. Pure blue. Pure ultramarine blue. And as you know, I'm not a big fan of worrying too much about what color I choose or what color I use. I just learn what colors I like and are useful to me, meaning they have a large range of values, they're good for my purposes, and then I use those. I'm not too worried about the exact color and, you know, mimicking maybe other people's paintings. I don't care about that as much. Door here, keeping them fairly loose, as you can tell. There is quite a dark doorway here that I want to make sure I indicate with some stairs leading to it, like so. And hopefully that passes on the message. Now, one thing I do want to do, these figures in the foreground should be much darker, especially the skin tone. So I'm gonna go for it. Just gonna go for it and hope for the best. Because that will help convey the message, and I do want them to look a little closer, okay? To appear to be a little closer to us. That's really important here. I'm going to add some details here as well, kind of like that. That way they feel a little closer, see? Now finally I'm going to add a bunch of people to the background, so I'm going to start very gently. There's a lot of people here. And again, I don't have too much space, so it's going to be basically, you know, indications of people. Just a bunch of heads and very gentle gestures. So I like to get a bit of opaque yellow and actually use that for some figures. I don't know why it looks good in my eyes. So creates a bit of a contrast with the environment. It's a bit more blue there at the back. Then a bit of red for the faces that I still haven't put in. And again, this is very loose. Now the shadows seem to cast to the right. I'm going to start working on those. I'm going to add a couple more figures here, like so. Some of them are clearer than others, a little darker. So there's a bunch of people here. It's an important place, I would assume. The Jaipur Amber Fort. And now I'm going to add the cast shadows of the people. So everything moves to the right, and that's going to help a lot with the sense of light and shadow in this scene. So kind of like this. Everything moves to the right. I'm going to cool the shadow off a bit. Like so. Like that. And I think with that we're almost done. Now here's what I want to do. I'm going to let this rest a bit, figure out if there's anything else I want to add, and then add that, and we'll wrap it up. So after thinking about it quite a bit, I really don't have much to add here. Like, really. I would actually love to leave it that way. What I did think I'd do is, add a bit of cheat and add a bit of white paint using this pen just to bring out some figures that maybe wear lighter clothes. So kind of a shirt here, a shirt there. That sometimes can improve the sense of light in the overall photo and painting. When you have that kind of balance, you see some people are very well lit, so that can help. Maybe some highlights as well around people's heads or shoulders. That can help, especially with this area that's very light. But other than that, I could add a bit of kind of this thing here, this thing there, a highlight here around this person. But for the most part, I really didn't want to force myself to add details because I like the way it looks. So I'm not going to force myself to add details. I'm going to just add a touch here and a touch there. You know, when it's done, it's done. You really don't have to continue working on it endlessly. When it's finished and you know it and you feel like you've got a good result, that's it. That's when you can wrap it up. I'm going to add just one here. So with that being said, we can wrap it up. A very interesting experience. Could be interesting to make another version more well planned and see what happens and what the results are. I will say this was very enjoyable. It was very fun and free. So in any case, let's wrap this one up. So this is it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing me work my way through this, and it wasn't easy. It's not easy, and I noticed that my visual language isn't as good as when I have some pencil lines to rely on. But I do think it's a good exercise in and of itself to help you develop and open up new horizons for growth. That's basically it. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to constantly do new things with my art to open up some new channels of things I haven't thought about. And maybe by doing this a lot, you'll figure out some details you put in with pencil aren't necessary. Now, my pencil sketches are very scarce to begin with, very non-detailed, but maybe you need that to get to the point where I'm at. I probably won't reduce it more than I do now. You've probably seen in other videos. But in any case, I want to thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed this one, and also subscribe and hit the bell button to receive notifications for new videos, 3 videos a week. I hope you enjoyed this one. I will talk to you again in another one real soon.